What's up, everybody, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Automatic Patient Podcast. I am your co-host today, Jordon Comstock. With me, as usual, Dr. Dan Nelson. What is up, Dan? How's it going, man?
Things are great, dude. I mean, we're chuckling because we're about to drop some bombs.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
excited to get into this. I haven't really talked to Jordan. This is it, man. You're the exclusive first person that I'm really gonna unload all this on.
It's
Yeah,
great.
it's the
Today,
basis for a lot of work that I've put into, and yeah, man. And I'll get into like where this was born from. And yeah, dude, this is going to be a fun podcast.
okay, sweet, Dan. Today we're going to be talking about the five barriers of success. And Dan, I mean, how long have you been running a practice now? It seems like, and helping practices.
Been a while, yeah.
You've watched a lot of practices come and go, and it sounds like you've noticed some patterns along the way.
Oh man. Yeah, so well, first let me just I'll do let's just start out. I'm gonna uncork this and it should ruffle
Cork
some
it, baby.
feathers.
Yeah.
Yeah, this should ruffle some feathers.
Sweet. It's fun.
I've identified five primary barriers to success within a dental practice.
Yeah.
And it's probably beyond that, but I'm not a
It's probably
overall
universal. Yeah.
business expert, right? I'm a
Yeah.
practice expert. Um, and I'm going to tell you the story how I came to these five barriers. But the five
Okay.
barriers are arrogance, ignorance, ambivalence, uh, fear, and capacity. And let me give a little background on where this was born from. And this is, probably it was born of frustration. I'll say that right off the bat. As you guys, if you guys have, I guess I could give a little background on myself. I am a psychology major. I'm fascinated with psychology. I love to know how the human brain works. Probably because I'm broken myself, trying to figure myself
Welcome to the
out.
club, Dan.
Yeah.
Welcome to the
Uh,
club.
Trying to figure out the rat's nest that makes up my brain, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
like just trying to sort out and so I've always had this deep fascination. I've never stopped studying it. It's always been an area that I've loved to continue
That's
to learn in.
interesting.
Well, and I think that it's beneficial within the world of dentistry for understanding your patients, and certainly it's
Yeah.
beneficial within the consulting world of getting to better understand the limitations that we have within ourselves or even that we put on ourselves. And so the way that was probably the like foundational groundwork for these five barriers, but the way it really came out was I feel bad for Jared and Ryan because we were on a group phone call and we were meeting with a client and he was a junior partner in a practice and he had asked that we meet with his senior partner. And the junior partner was frustrated with multiple things, and they were hoping to find some resolution to it. He was hoping that we could mitigate and
Got it.
mediate.
Yeah.
And so we hop on this phone call with this Dr. X, and uh,
Dr.
and
X.
Dr.
Yes.
X and
Sweet.
Dr. Y is his senior partner. Well,
Uh-huh.
as we're getting into the conversation, Dr. Y keeps injecting and saying some stuff. He wasn't overtly like rude necessarily. I mean, he was rude, but he wasn't combative at first, right? He
Yeah.
wasn't combative. But it became really obvious that he felt like we weren't necessary and that he was bugged that he was on this phone call at all with us, right? And he just didn't like it. And so he kept throwing in these little like jabs and jives and like trying to stick it to us here and there in some of his comments. And after a while, I was just like, and the poor Dr. X was so frustrated. And he's like, look, I'm trying to figure out some solutions here. And I'm getting stonewalled by my partner on this
Oh,
call,
geez.
getting
Yeah.
stonewalled. And so
Which is very common in just business in
oh,
general.
it's business, right? And
I
so
dealt with that with early founders as well. You
it
know,
happens,
it's rough.
yeah, but it's frustrating, especially if you're trying to mediate all this. I got to a point where, and anyone that knows me knows that I have a low ceiling when one of my core values is competency. And if I start to sense
I love it. Yeah.
a lack of that, I get really irritated. And
Sure.
and so my level of irritation got really high, and I just kind of unloaded on this poor guy. And I was like, you know what? There's three barriers to success. And I said arrogance, ignorance, and ambivalence in that
Uh-huh.
conversation.
Yeah.
And I just said something along the lines of like, I directed it right at him, right? And things got a little quiet. Ryan's just walking past me right here. Ryan's eyes got the size of Texas.
Right,
Jared,
right knows.
Ryan's, he remembers it well, right? Like he's like, oh
Yeah.
gosh. And Jared's like, dude, like they both were like, can't believe you just did that. And so like the conversation wasn't going anywhere. We weren't getting anywhere within the conversation. And it makes me, Dr. Y is not a bad guy. Dr. Y is, a good
Yeah, of
dude, but
course. Yeah.
but in that moment, I was so frustrated, and it ended up turning out fine. But that was where I just shot those. I didn't think about those. I hadn't been thinking about those. And somewhere from the recesses of my brain, they just came out in that moment of frustration. And
Interesting.
yeah, and so I took those three and I really started to think on it. And, as I've met with a lot of docs, it's been interesting to see where our limitations are and the things that stop us from progressing and keep us from success. And
Yeah,
so I found that the other one was fear. Fear limits us in so many ways. And
it really does.
it's hard to identify sometimes because it's tied to so many insecurities and issues that we have. And then recently in my studies, I came upon the fifth one, and that's capacity. And capacity means, and we can break down each of these a little bit more, but the capacity has two meanings. There's a double meaning there. One is bandwidth, and I think we've all felt that limitation of capacity. The other is ability. And, do
Like
we have
skill set,
yeah,
ability.
exactly. And a lot of these are a poke in the ribs, right? Like if you look at any one of these five, they kind of feel like a poke in the ribs, and they feel like, hey, like, why are you being mean, Dan? And it's because there's a point where you got to rip these band-aids off and you have to look at yourself critically. And that, by the way, is one of the signs of higher cognition is the ability to think about the way you think.
Yeah, being aware.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an awareness, and it's processing why you do the things you do and why you think the way you think. That is a high,
Yeah.
if you want to get to the upper echelon of intelligence and cognition, take a second to break down. I also think it's the doorway to insanity, but there's a point where you're like, okay, I gotta put a cap on this, drive myself crazy. But it is important to take a step back and say, why do I do the things that I do? And
Yeah.
and why do I think the way I think?
Just self-assessing. That's
Yeah.
that's interesting. Yeah, I think that's always healthy. And I would imagine with your so you studied psychology?
Yeah, man.
I
Like
hadn't,
for 6 years, I studied
dude, I
psychology.
hadn't know that. I have a passion around that. Like I was gonna go into that early on in my career. I never did, but I have a passion about just studying on my own. Because I thought it was just fascinating. Then I found marketing. I'm like, oh, there's psychology in marketing.
Oh,
I like
so
marketing.
so much. Yeah.
So no, that's really cool that you did that. And that's one of your skill sets. So arrogance, like what's an example of arrogance in dental,
Oh man.
running a practice? Because I mean, both you and I have been have been in dental for a while, and I'm sure we've seen different scenarios of this. But I look at arrogance as um, you're kind of mentally distorted, right? When you're like, how would you define it? I'm better than the other person, maybe? What's
There's
an
that.
arrogant,
There's
like,
certainly that aspect, but more than anything, it's probably a level of overconfidence.
okay, so overconfidence, thinking that they're the top, whatever, dentist, entrepreneur, salesperson, pick your
Um,
industry.
what's interesting about arrogance is the way that it manifests in competent people. And
Okay.
what ends up happening is that, and there is the traditional sense of arrogance, surely. We bump into that, and that's, the synonyms for that type of arrogance would be cockiness or,
Yeah,
um, you know, there's a certain almost vanity that comes with that type of arrogance,
sure.
right? Where
Got it.
it's just that, that's the type that's linked to pride, and that is the I'm better than you type of arrogance. And
Yeah,
that's a dangerous arrogance in and of itself.
sure.
And
Yeah.
it can certainly limit somebody from finding success because, And the way we bump into that style of arrogance is I'm better than you. I don't need you. We see that a lot every
Got it.
day,
Yeah.
where we're like, hey, we're offering, I don't need you. I know what I'm doing. I'm better than you.
Yeah. I mean,
I
we
can
see
do
that
it
here
even
at
better.
Boom Cloud as well, right? Like,
Totally.
well, I
Yeah.
don't need
And
you. I'm better than we can do this. Right? It's like,
yeah,
well, okay.
you're like, okay, I guess if you're better, then that's okay, and but the one that we see manifest more often, and that is out there, by the way, we all know that
Yeah.
person, we all know that doc that's just like, okay, like,
Yeah.
but they're
Or
not,
in my case, that salesperson or whatever, choose your employee type in my business.
yeah,
It's like
yeah.
it's pretty universal.
You burn out on a conversation with that person in about 3 seconds. You know what I mean? You're like,
Yes.
yeah, okay. Yeah, like
Okay. You're
they're
done.
meat monsters. Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah. It's really fun. Yeah.
But the type that is probably the more dangerous and more common type of arrogance in dentistry. So dentists in general are highly competent people. You have
Yes.
very intelligent, highly competent, skilled individuals. And the problem is that there's a phenomenon within psychology that exists. And what it is it's when someone has a high level of competency in one area, they overestimate their competency in other areas. And so they think that
Interesting.
they're actually better or like, hey, I can do it because they are competent human
I can
beings.
do anything.
Yes. And
I'm
so,
invincible.
yeah, and it's exactly. And that's where it becomes problematic within business because they're like, especially in the higher level of competence you have, like clinically, for example, the more dangerous this pitfall is
Interesting.
within other areas. And so, like, take marketing, for example. So, let's say you have a highly competent clinician, they're extremely good. They're going to overestimate their ability in marketing, for example. So they're going to be like, "Oh yeah, I can do this marketing. How hard can it be? I just went and did this super hard procedure. Marketing's easy, compared."
Yeah.
Well, that's not true. I mean, in some ways, yes, it's easier, but that doesn't mean that you're equally competent within that
Yeah.
world. So, and
Absolutely.
yeah, and so that's an area of arrogance that we see manifest all the time, and it really gets ugly in
Fascinating.
business. And so, what we find is these highly competent, very good docs that really are not, and they overestimate their competency and their abilities to run the practice. And that actually breeds some of the other things that are on my list. It breeds ambivalence. And it certainly is a recipe for ignorance. Um,
Yeah.
and it's a little bit of that is based on some of the ignorance works its way into there. They're not mutually exclusive, these five barriers. There is overlap and they do work together to
Sure.
make things worse. But arrogance is the one that always like whenever you start the conversation off and you drop arrogance, people get like, oh yeah, you call me arrogant, you think I'm haughty, it's like, yeah, maybe. I think we are all a little bit.
The fact that you're responding that way means you're
Yeah,
arrogant.
yeah, right. I mean,
It's like,
it's
okay.
it's hard. It's a hard balance between feeling confident and tripping over into arrogance. And I
Mm,
think that we need to be confident in our abilities and where we have good training and good experience and not get lost in the areas that maybe we're not as strong. And believe me,
yeah.
I'm as guilty of that as anybody. I mean, it's an easy pitfall to fall into. But I think that there's a distinction there. And, I don't know, maybe it's a combination. I think that, we probably all struggle a little bit with areas of arrogance, where we're like,
Oh, sure.
yeah, I'm
Yeah.
freaking awesome at this.
I kick ass.
Yeah, that's right.
No, that's funny, but also true. And yeah, so being self-aware, I think is, like you said earlier, is is one of the key. Like, so okay, here's a question with your psychology brain. Um, if somebody's arrogant, do they ever realize that they are arrogant?
So that
And
I
then
knew
like
you were
how do
going
they
to
undo
ask
that?
that.
How do they undo that? So they can
Human
become more successful, right?
human beings are horrible at self-assessment.
Sure, yeah.
So, and where we're bad, we can do okay with traits. Like we can understand our self-assess our traits fairly well
Yeah.
with some level of accuracy. What we suck at is assessing our impact on others. There's a
Interesting.
famous study that came from personality theory theorists that, and I don't remember the exact numbers, but it's the percentage that the amount that we think about people thinking about us. So like how much do that we worry that, oh, they're thinking or they're talking about me. Other people are thinking and talking about me.
Yeah.
They don't. First of all, they don't. Like people
Yeah.
don't talk about you. If they do, it's in passing. Maybe it's some gossip. Maybe it's something that you irritated somebody, or maybe it's your birthday. Like it's very, very
Yeah.
little,
Yeah,
right?
sure.
It's a time. Your mom is probably number one, like the person that talks about you the most.
Maybe. Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe.
Depends on your relationship with your mom, I
But
guess.
yeah, but even your mom thinks about herself way more than she thinks about you. And
Oh,
that's the
absolutely.
reality, is
Yeah.
that we think about ourselves constantly. And
Uh-huh.
that's not an arrogance. That's not that's not,
Just it's
it's
just
just the way we're
living
wired.
it's just
Yeah,
living
because
life.
you're navigating life, of course.
Yeah.
But because of that, what the irony of that is that are so bad at assessing our impact because we look internally so much, we fail to look externally a lot
Interesting.
and see the impact that our behavior has on others. And so we aren't good at understanding that impact. So, okay, well, how does that translate to one of these five barriers? Well, that's where these personality tests, that type of thing come in, and you
Yeah.
can take one of those and just see where you land.
Yeah.
But really, you have to start to focus on how does the world interact with me? It's like
Yeah.
what do I get back when I put stuff out? And that's where it's hard because we don't perceive what's coming back at us very well because Brene Brown is famous for talking about the narrative we write ourselves. We write all these narratives, and
Yeah.
that's where the confusion comes. And so a good way to find out is someone
And
that you
most of the
trust.
narratives can be distorted.
They're always
Yeah,
distorted.
they're always distorted.
Always.
Yeah.
Our accuracy is terrible. But the best way is either to take a test or find someone that you trust. A sibling is a good idea.
Yeah.
Siblings are great because
A
they're
twin
really good.
brother,
Yeah, a
in
twin
my case.
brother would be ideal.
Sweet.
Uh, a spouse, a parent, someone that is willing to tell you the honest truth, and you
Yeah.
have to be willing to receive that honest
Accept it.
truth.
Yeah.
And that's the hard part is that you have to be open to the truth, and you have to, and being, we're not good at being susceptible or feeling that, open to the reality of our situation. And nobody wants to hear that maybe they have a trait or a behavior that is less than ideal
That's not
social.
helpful. Yeah.
Yes.
Sure.
And I would say this, arrogance is the one you can find is that if you find that when people criticize you or they're trying to be of help to help you out in some capacity,
And be
and you fall
defensive.
back on, I know better than they do, who
Yeah.
do you
So
think you are?
defense
You
and
probably have an arrogance problem.
yeah, I mean, I've noticed that with people too, right? I mean, both you and I run businesses that involve people. And I've noticed that too. Like if you like have an intention to help coach and uh a certain employee and they come back and they get defensive or whatever you just said there. Um, that's a really hard person to coach too when it comes to employees, right? It's like, oh man,
Yeah.
all I'm
And
I'm trying to do is just coach this person. I'm not trying to hurt their
trying to
feelings.
help, yeah.
Trying to help.
And
Right?
defensiveness can be born of insecurity.
Yeah.
So you have to watch out for that. It's more of, do I come away from this interaction feeling like I'm better or I could do better than what they're offering or telling me? That
Got it.
is arrogance. And so
It's
if
like,
you're
oh,
like,
that advice was bullshit.
yes,
I'm better than that
I'm better.
advice or whatever.
Let me
Yeah,
show you,
got it.
or if someone brings something to the table of something that you've done and they're like critiquing or giving you some, some type of positive, some type of feedback, and you find yourself, you know, um, frustrated, not because of your insecurity, but because you feel like your competency level in this thing is higher. And
Yeah,
what do they know? That is arrogance. So you
got it.
have to watch
Yeah.
out for that.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. Okay, so ignorance now. What are signs you may be ignorant running your practice?
This is the hard one. So ignorance is because you don't know what you don't know,
I
right?
know.
Yeah. So ignorance is extremely difficult in that it is one of the things that you're bleeding around, fumbling through things blindly, hoping to figure something out. And it's almost always touch the stove scenario when you
Yeah.
figure out, like, how do you become, educated? Well, you touch the stove and you
You touch
find
the
out
stove.
you
Yep.
didn't know.
Yeah. I've
This
touched the
is
stove a
where,
ton.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
This is where mentors and coaches in your life are paramount.
Yeah.
And there's a fantastic book written by Dan Sullivan and Ben Hardy called Who Not
Oh,
How.
they were one, I've read that book. Ben was just here in town.
Oh, he was?
He just messaged me and invited me to do a retreat. I couldn't go, but I was definitely interested. Yeah, that
Yeah.
great author.
Awesome psychologist, right? He's
Yes,
fantastic.
absolutely.
Yeah, and if you haven't read that book, I highly recommend you go read it. But that is all about putting the right people into your life to be able to help fill those gaps, right? And also, I mean, that book is also about like staying in your lane and finding the people that can do the things that you think you can do better than you can, that
Yeah.
actually do them better than you can, right? So,
Yeah.
but the ignorance barrier is extremely tough. The one that's the most dangerous is the head in the sand ignorance.
Which
The
happens a lot in the dental space. Even like when I managed my dad's dental lab and the when like CEREC started coming out. So that was that was before I started Boom Cloud. I was in that era of managing a dental lab when the CEREC started coming out and it really disrupted the dental lab industry.
Yeah.
My dad like love him. He's a great dude. But he would put his head in the sand. He's like, I don't want to deal with all this stuff. And my grandpa would too, because my grandpa owned the dental lab as well. And, because me and my brother were there, Justin, we wanted to get into the technology and we helped them pull their heads out. But that was really challenging because they just wanted to bury like we've done this way for. I mean the lab has been around since 1906, and my grandpa bought it I think in the 50s. So they're like, we've been doing it this way for X amount of time, and they just wanted to bury their heads in the sand. But then eventually they turned and adopted like the technology and they're thriving now. But that was really difficult to deal with that type of behavior back then.
And you can see elements of ambivalence in there, and you can see elements of
Sure.
fear in there, right? Like,
Yeah,
so
absolutely. It's all
that
connected.
it is. And that's a great example. I think that
Yeah,
these are the symptoms of ignorance in an office is that you don't know your KPIs. That's
yeah,
like one of the easiest ones. And I don't
sure.
mean memorize them, you know what I mean? I'm
Yeah,
not
you know how to find them, know what they mean, and all that stuff.
right. And
Because I
and
don't
sometimes
memorize. I look at my business data every day, and I don't memorize everything, right?
no.
No way. And that's what I mainly do, right? So if you're running your practice, working with patients, the expectation is not to memorize your KPIs. It's to just
No.
know how to get them and why they're important.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. And that's if someone's going, okay, how do I know if I'm being ignorant? That's one of the easiest ways is do I know the vitality numbers of my practice? And like I say, not memorized, but do I know how to get them? Do I have someone giving them to me?
Yeah.
Am I able to keep
Am
my
I
finger
looking
on the
at
pulse?
them weekly or monthly, whatever cadence, a
Yep.
certain cadence?
Yep. The other things about ignorance is do I know what my team is doing? And what I
Yeah.
mean by that is I don't mean micromanaging your team. I mean, is there
Five roles and
reporting system?
responsibilities.
Yes,
Yes. What are they doing? Like, what are their roles? Do they have a daily action plan? What is it? All
exactly.
that stuff. That's how
Yep.
I look at it. Very cool. So it's just knowing what's happening versus like, well, I hope Becky up front is doing what needs to be done.
Yeah. Yeah. And you can see that ignorance is can be tied to arrogance. If you're like, oh, we're
Interesting.
so good, we don't need to do any of this stuff. You know what I mean? Ah, we got it.
Jeez.
We're
Yeah.
so far ahead of the curve. We don't need to know that.
So, Dan, we have a couple former office managers that work here at Boom Cloud that help our customers. And the thing they say the most I hear when they're talking, when they see the scenario, exactly what you're talking about, the arrogance and ignorance a lot. And they always say, a lot of practices run like this. The right hand doesn't know what the left hand is doing, meaning the dentist doesn't know what the office manager is doing. They're just kind of running this. That like I hear that phrase constantly when I go out into our office and just talking to our like customer success team and just trying to solve some of the problems of, some of our practices that we're trying to help. Um, that phrase comes up a lot. The right hand doesn't know what the left hand is doing. It's kind of like, oh,
Yeah.
just walking around, flapping their arms.
And that's a great combination of arrogance, ambivalence,
Yeah.
and also ignorance. So, because what you have there is you have overconfidence in the capacity or ability of your office manager, right?
Yeah.
The doc does, which
Yep.
which they could be amazing, but you're still either that it's born of overconfidence or you just don't give a crap, and because that there's your ambivalence, right?
Yeah.
And so either way, you don't know what's happening. And so it leads to, ignorance. And so you start, that's such a great, and I love that you're giving these real world examples because they really tie in these
Yeah, we
principles
see it.
and
We
barriers.
see it every day, just like you, right? Just
Oh,
at a
all the
different,
time.
just with like growing membership plans, right? That's where I see it.
Yep.
And then obviously, and just we we both have been in dentistry for a while, so it's like, wow, yeah, dental lab people act like that too. You know?
People are people, man. It's no
Yeah,
matter
it's
what.
people are people. Yeah. And of course, there's been times where I've been ignorant in, running my own company.
Oh, we all have done it.
I like the learning because I had touched the stove 12 times has happened
Is it
many
still hot?
times.
It's still
It's
hot. Is it
still
hot? Oh,
hot.
it's
It's still
still
hot,
hot.
Dan. Yeah. No, I'm learning, but and you said something, it's why mentors are important. So what I 1000% agree with that. I've always had mentors that help me kind of navigate, what I'm trying to build.
Yeah.
And like exactly what I see you guys helping other practices trying to build their careers up. And I think that's a really important thing to do. Most of my best learnings without touching the fire, right, or the stove,
Yeah. Yeah.
have been with my mentors. So I'm a part of it's kind of like a peer group of other bootstrap software founders,
Yep.
right? Very comparable to a group that you may be coaching a group of practices trying to grow their businesses. Same thing like what our buddy Dr. Mark Costes does, right? Very comparable. And that has been the best thing that I've ever done for myself because it really helps me, one, self-reflect, and two, don't touch that stove because that one's still hot, right?
Yeah.
Type
That's still
type
hot.
stuff, right? And I've learned so much so quickly. And there's about 10, 12 of us that meet weekly, and then we all meet together. There's like 60 of us total, 60 or 70 of us total that we meet quarterly and monthly. And that's been like a game changer for me, learning how to just manage my own business. So I would imagine uh, practices with a support system like that and mentors that can help them, that's a huge game changer for ignorance,
Oh, it's massive. Yeah, I
you
mean,
know?
I've been practicing, I'm about 15 years now. I've been practicing for about 15 years. And
Yeah,
if you just look at clinically, I have about six mentors today that are my clinical mentors.
sure.
That on any given day, on any given case, on any different given situation that I can reach out to and that I continue to learn from. And that's not including, the overall like life and, my leadership, the community within Elevation Association, this awesome group of docs that we have that I learn from all the time. It's, I get up and I do presentations and I'm supposed to provide the continuing education and the discussions that come from these things. I'm like, holy crap, I'm getting mentored every time I meet because there's so much to learn from from so many awesome people. So, the community, I love that you brought that up because I think that that's
Yeah,
one of the things that we undervalue as a mentorship type of situation where if we allow
yeah.
ourselves to be open, we can be mentored by so many of those interactions, peer interactions.
And like it can be uncomfortable too, right? Because it's like, well, I don't want people to think that I'm running my business wrong, my
Oh
practice
my
wrong, right?
gosh.
But it's actually more freeing when you're like, guys, I like So like last month, I messed up something for in my business in the marketing system, and it really threw us off, right? And I took ownership of that, and I went to the our group, and I'm like, okay, so this is what I did. Like, I'm not gonna hide the mistake,
Right.
but I
Own it.
want to talk about it and figure out how not to do it again. And if it
Yep.
helps somebody else in my group, it'll help somebody else in the group. That's a good thing, right? One of my if we're going to talk about core values, like you said, one of our core values here at Boom Cloud is be a team rock star. So, and in
Yeah.
my family, right? All my girls will talk about being team rock stars. And we have core values at home too. Because I think that's the easiest way to teach the kids.
Totally.
But the team members too. But like if I share a mistake or a learning because I messed up and touched the stove too early, and it helps one of my peers that is running another software company, then I consider that a win. It's like, man, if we can help each other do that as a group, as a community, then that like we all win when we share stuff like that. So um being able to be vulnerable is really important, I think, in those types of like
Totally.
mentorship settings, so that you can really just get down to the issues and solve them. Like that's all it is. It's like it's not personal. It's like,
Yep.
you know what I mean? It's like because you missed a KPI or don't understand a KPI in your practice doesn't mean you're a bad practice owner. You're a learning practice owner. We're all learning. So no, I think mentorship and just getting with groups of other practice owners, for example, and wanting to grow with that is one of the best things you can do. There's a book, Think and Grow Rich.
Oh yeah.
Have you read
Yep.
that book? He talks about the power of the mastermind. And I mean that's one of my favorite books, and that's always the one that stands out. It's like, okay, so I gotta be part of a mastermind. So if you're thinking about being a part of a mastermind, do it because it's like it's been one of the best things for me, even though I'm not a dentist, but I'm part of masterminds.
Yeah.
And you see it all the time, Dan, right? That it's really beneficial for practice owners, and then they don't have to touch the hot stove again.
It's how
Yeah.
you combat ignorance. It is. And
Yeah.
it's that's because as you start to interact with the more people you can interact with, especially the more focal interactions based on like your vocation, that's really helpful because you
Yeah.
start to get just by osmosis, you start to take in a lot more things that you're like, oh, I didn't even know that was a thing. I didn't know that I could
Yep.
do that. Oh, don't
Yep.
do that, and or yeah,
It's the
there's
fastest way to get out of ignorance.
yeah, and it's one of the reasons that the EA tribe has so much magic within it is that these are the things that you can't build in. It's
Yeah.
these social interactions that allow these organic growth models that you can't plan this stuff. It just occurs because of the interpersonal reaction relationships that come from it. So yeah, that's massive, and that's so. I mean, if you want to combat your own ignorance, obviously, CE education, uh,
Yeah.
get yourself
Just
involved in that, but also get into a community.
yeah. Yeah. Education is really good too. Like, um, I'm big at reading books with our team,
Yeah, well,
and
that's a novel idea. Read books, read something.
yeah, read something. Like my brother Justin, who you've met, always talks about the importance of reading just within our team, and the importance of reading. Maybe something that helps improve, your skill set, for example, in their job roles. And it's interesting to me that those who read succeed, because it's probably exactly what you said. It's a way to get out of ignorance, right? And you self-assess as well. It's like, oh, I could be saying that better on a phone call to a patient, or whatever, right? Whatever you're reading. But it just when you read, it allows you, it connects your mind better, and then it allows you to learn and get out of not knowing.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's really cool. All right, what's the next one here? Do we got capacity next? Is that the next one?
Ambivalence.
Oh, ambivalence. Talk about
Ambivalence
it.
is the ambivalence is the as a consultant and as a coach, and certainly as a doc, ambivalence is one of the most frustrating things that you bump into. because you can have somebody that has overcome all the other four, but if they
Okay.
just don't give a crap, that's a choice. So the other ones can sometimes not necessarily be a choice. It's something that they can't control, but ambivalence is a choice. And that's where it gets really frustrating. And any doc that has faced, we've all faced this. It's the patient that comes through the door that is blown apart. They have cavity caries everywhere. They have infections everywhere. And they'll say something along the lines of, well, it doesn't hurt. And you're like, okay, all right. And
Doesn't hurt, so I'm good.
there, and and it's the the real level of ambivalence is where it's this patient that if there's no financial barrier, there's no time barrier, there's no education barrier. They just don't care.
They just
They
don't
just
care.
don't care. That is the hardest patient to deal with, right? Because
Yeah.
you what do you do at that point? You're just like stare at him and be like, all right, just like beware of,
See you in a
necrotizing
couple years.
fasciitis. Watch out for systemic infections, like
Yeah, see you in a few years for your dentures.
yeah, and that's exactly right. I mean, it's a very childish. I actually just saw a kid the other day that had just was completely ambivalent, didn't care, right? And his mom was like, "Make him care," and I'm like, "I'm not gonna
Make him
care."
care.
And I'm
Make
just
him
like,
care, Dan. Jeez.
I'm like, that's your job, and I don't ground him. I don't know what to do. Like, teach him consequences, like,
Make him
um,
care.
so, but we see it all the time in practices. And,
With
sometimes
practice
there's,
ownership.
yeah, just, I mean, what we're seeing more now today um, is it's an alignment problem, right?
Okay.
And when you're misaligned, and I think that's why we're seeing more movement within the DSO and the corporate world
Hmm.
is that there are because of the explosion of DSO and corporate positions, there's a
Yeah.
lot more available. And so if someone is like, I don't want to be an owner, I just want to be a clinician. I don't align well with ownership. There's
Yeah.
more avenues for employment there than there used to be.
Interesting. Which is
And
unfortunate because ownership, there's a lot of benefits to it,
there is,
you
but
know?
if you're ambivalent about that, and there's
Yeah.
nothing wrong with being to be ambivalent about something isn't bad.
No.
It certainly carries like a negative connotation, and the negativity would be when you don't care, and the impact of you not caring is negative, right?
Okay.
And
Yeah.
and that's where we bump into sadly they don't convert into become an EA clients because they don't care. Like you
Yeah.
can find somebody that's frustrated and they're like, like
Yeah.
maybe
I mean,
their team is frustrated. They're not frustrated. They're just like, and usually let me tell you this scenario, who it is. This is the doc that makes a good enough, I call it the good enough dentist. And
okay.
it's they make a good enough living that nothing's hurting them financially, nothing's
It's the
hurting them
comfort
enough at
zone.
the
Yeah.
office. Yes, they're in the comfort zone, which is the goal. I always say, like,
Yeah.
that's the goal. We want to
Yeah.
get
We
in
want to
that
get
comfort zone,
comfortable. Yeah.
but not to the point of ambivalence, right?
Yeah.
And not to be confused with capacity. So we're going to talk about that in a second, but ambivalence is super dangerous. And this is we were talking before we started the podcast. And it's what teed me up on talking about this particular subject was you see the doc who is in their 60s, maybe even their 70s,
Yeah.
that has become ambivalent because
It's exactly what I was taught the age of the dentist I was talking about earlier
yep,
before we recorded.
and it's not burnout. They
Yeah.
maybe they still love it. They just start to become ambivalent where they're just like, I just don't care that much
Whatever.
anymore.
Yeah. Maybe that's just natural of aging. I don't know.
Yeah,
Maybe.
but when you're younger and certainly when you're newer into it, ambivalence you have to be careful of. And we already gave the examples that I see ambivalence. The dangerous and bad kind of ambivalence is too often tied to arrogance,
Okay.
and that will lead to ignorance, and that's going to have bad repercussions, and you're going to end up in a bad place. And
It's all
so,
systemic, it feels.
yes, yep, absolutely. So ambivalence is one that, you know. I do think we were talking about this earlier, Ryan and I, about how your top like entrepreneurs, business people in the world, they all have coaches. They all have
Yeah,
consultants that they work with. We still have people that we work with all the time.
sure. Yeah,
And and you have to have that. And that's not it, there's a reason why. And sure, I'm like, yeah, but again, if EA is not the fit, I've said this so many times. If EA is not the fit, go find someone that is. You talked about Mark. Like Mark has a
yeah,
fantastic offering. You know,
yeah.
we even though Mark and that DSI and EA are direct competitors, we really believe in collaborating and working together
Well,
because we know
you
that what
guys
we
have
can build.
abundance mindsets too, right?
Well, you should,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, which I think is great,
Fine, yeah, but the point of that is don't be ambivalent. Like, if you really want to find a happy place in your life, like, don't become reactive, be proactive. And ambivalent people, you become reactive. And all that does is you find yourself putting out a lot of fires because you
yeah,
just don't care. But also, like, take a second and wonder, like, I can go into ambivalence a lot because it has a lot to do with alignment, where alignment can manifest as ambivalence. So if you're misaligned, and let's say that your day to day is filled full of things that you're misaligned with that you hate doing, that dislike of those types of tasks and responsibilities, that misalignment with that, you're not going to care as much about those as
the
something that you
quality and
enjoy.
yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
absolutely. So
interesting.
so take an assessment of like, where do I align well? And am I doing a good job of delegating the stuff that I don't like?
Yeah,
Because as soon as you misalign, burnout, by the way, is often misdiagnosed. Misalignment is often misdiagnosed as let me rephrase that. Misalignment is often misdiagnosed as burnout. There we go.
got it. So
Um,
if somebody's misaligned with, with tasks in the office, they label it as burnout when it's just
Yeah.
misalignment.
Well, why would, yeah, because you're not going to want to go do the stuff that you hate doing like that, like blah, I
Yeah,
could, like there's
I don't
things,
do the stuff that I don't like doing here.
yeah,
I try to get rid of all that. But
exactly.
hire people that have capacity and the skill sets, right?
Yes.
That's the
Find
and
your who's. Yep.
which is also like can be challenging as well, right?
It can be. Absolutely.
Finding the people with the right skill sets is probably another topic
Totally.
on our series here. Okay, so capacity is next.
Fear is next.
Oh, fear is next.
Yeah. Fear.
Sorry.
No, I'm good. So fear is the one that we're all the most familiar with, right?
Yes.
Like, and it's there's a lot of irony and fear in that we often recognize those things. I loved your head in the sand comment about your dad because
There's a lot of fear back then. Yeah.
because he had something new forced on him, right?
Yeah.
He had this new
The whole
technology.
industry did.
Yeah, and it was forced on him and it's making him change,
Yeah.
right? And is a large subset of people that fear change more than anything else.
Yeah.
Change is terrifying to them. And if you introduce any kind of change, it's going to freak them out. And a lot of times they freeze out of fear, which is what the bury your head in the sand because they don't know what to
Yeah.
do. And you can become frozen by fear. Fear motivates. Fear, as a motivator, is
It's
generally
powerful.
it's powerful, but it's very short-lived as well.
Sure. Yeah.
So, because as soon as the fear impulse goes away, the motivation goes away to change.
Yeah. Interesting.
So, and they've shown that in psychology over and over and over again. And so, like, where you would see that is like parents that try to use fear to motivate their kids, the scared straight program, at home, like
Yeah. Yeah. That never works.
it doesn't work. You
It's
can
short
change a
term.
temporary behavior.
Yeah. It's short
Got
term.
it. But if you, as we look at ourselves, I think we have to look and go, okay, what am I scared of to change? And really that's what it boils down to is like, okay, where am I being inhibited? What would that impact have if I were to overcome this inhibition, right? Or
Yeah.
what is this fear motivating me to do, maybe that I wouldn't normally do? And that takes a lot of like you have to look inside and kind of assess, okay, let me give you some real world examples of this. Ryan and I were just podcasting this morning on the Elevation Association Experience podcast about um, a little bit about this topic, and we were talking about softwares, and softwares cost money. And if you're a startup or maybe you're struggling a little bit to take that financial leap to go invest into something like Boom Cloud, for example,
Yeah.
and say, okay, I need something to track this stuff. I need something to make my life better. And making that initial leap, that financial leap, even if it's small, Boom Cloud is extremely affordable. But if you're freaked out over, oh my gosh, I just looked at my books, things are so tight, I don't know if I
Especially in
can
startup
manage
land. Yeah.
this. That's scary, right? Like to
Yeah.
to make that leap is scary. And so there's a point where you have to like get over it, the bottom line. And there's something
Yeah.
that we call paralysis by analysis.
Yeah.
Where I think that you see that is, we like to go to Lake Powell occasionally, and I like to cliff jump.
Nice.
And I hate heights, like with a fiery
Shut up.
passion. Oh, I hate it, dude.
It's
I
your
hate it.
exposure therapy.
That's
That's what you're
exactly what
doing.
I
Yeah.
do. I I hate heights more than maybe anything, and I will force myself to go up to these big cliffs, and I will force myself to jump off them. The longer that I stand at the top of the cliff, the harder it gets for me to jump off.
Yeah.
There is a point that I have to make up my mind prior to making the hike up that I will jump off. And
That's a analysis paralysis at work, right? Because
it's at
your
work.
brain is like, oh boy, and then it digs deeper and deeper. What could happen? You know?
Exactly. So, and there's a lot of like self-help books and books on psychology about fear and overcoming fear but
Yeah.
just I think it's important at this level to recognize where are our tripping points with fear, where am I being motivated to do things that maybe aren't healthy, and where am I being inhibited from doing things that are healthy within my practice, and really take some stock on like, okay, what am I doing that's fear-based? How is that
Mm.
pushing or motivating or limiting me on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis, whatever?
Yeah, well, I mean, we see it too. Like a lot of practices that come to us, Dan, are trying to cut out insurance companies, right? Like what
Yeah,
you guys have
man.
done.
It's
And
scary.
it's like that is one of the things I think we deal with a lot with our team is that fear because, well, it's changing their whole business model, right? And it's scary to a lot of practices. And I remember years ago, uh, I was at a I was at a seminar with Gary Takis. You know Gary.
Oh yeah.
And Gary was talking about going out of network as he usually does, you know. And I remember I was sitting it was a room, it was really close knit. I was sitting next to this doctor in Texas, and he leaned over to me. He's like, but I'm so terrified that it'll just collapse my business. And I remember sitting next to him, I'm like, Doc, you don't need to rip out every PPO right now. Like we know that you want to get rid of them and you want to figure this out, right? But here's a suggestion. You can take it or not, right? And if it makes sense to you. I said just start building your patient savings plan and just start getting one patient at a time. Just focus on that. And over time, build up enough recurring revenue through your program to then drop just the weakest, like the smallest insurance company you got right now. Just to get that exposure therapy going, right? Because it's crazy for a lot of these practices. But that's one aspect of fear that I've realized, especially with what we do, right? The practice owner was just scared, and he almost wasn't willing to do anything about it. He's like, "Well, I'll just put my head in the sand and just keep doing this PPO game," which is
Yep.
a lot of practices, we've talked to. It seems like that's uh the mindset right now. Even
They
with
default to ignorance.
yeah, they default to ignorance. And I literally was texting an office manager yesterday just because I keep in touch with some people and I'm like, hey, why were you looking at dropping insurance companies and building your a membership plan for your practice? And she's like, It's just this reimbursement game. I just don't know how long I can do it. I'm like, but you just keep thinking and thinking and thinking about it, and you don't take any action. You just talk about how scary it is. And when I see guys like you guys, you know, who have gotten through that fear and gotten through ignorance and all these things we've talked about on this call today, and now you guys are operating a fee for service practice at a network, and you drop Delta, like that's pretty cool. But it's not because it's like because you guys worked on yourselves first mentally. I think
Yeah.
that's really important.
Preparation, right?
Yeah, like I think that's really important um, in this space, especially with where just the industry's going and how difficult insurance is. But it's like you guys got mentors, got coaches, and figured out how to beat the evil PPO empire,
Yeah,
right?
man.
Because of everything we're talking about here, you overcame fear, and because I would imagine there was a point of fear that you guys felt about dropping PPOs and doing all that stuff. Maybe, maybe not. Maybe you guys were like, let's just go. Or who knows?
No, I mean, and you just touched on a very human trait, and
Yeah.
it's within all of us, and that is that ignorance breeds fear,
Yeah.
right?
Okay.
We are
Yeah.
generally more scared of the unknown than even if it's something uncomfortable. And again, they've shown this over and over and over again. And they've done it through like even like an unpleasant like procedure, like even getting your blood drawn, for example. Like they
Yeah,
can
sure.
study that, and they've said, okay, like if the person knows what's coming, the first shot is always the worst, right? Because you don't know what's coming, and in every dentist that's dealt with the kid or even the adult with their first cavity, they're like, oh, Judas, I'm so freaking scared right now, and because they don't know they've never had a shot before, they've never had an injection before.
Sure.
And so there's so many aspects of life that we can see that the fear of the unknown is massive. And
Interesting.
there's some areas that even when you talk to somebody, right? Like you can kind of get an idea. So for us, prior to exiting and going fee for service, we talked to a lot of, we enlisted some of our mentors, and we got them hooked up with people that had exited. We talked to other peers that had exited, and
Yeah.
we did all of our groundwork with it. And there's still an element of fear that exists. It doesn't go
It
away.
doesn't go away. Yeah.
Yeah, you're always
Yeah,
going to
me too.
be.
Running my company, like there's still, fear is something it's a human emotion we got to deal with.
Yeah, and it's
Just
not the
doesn't go
fear
away.
it's not the fear itself that can limit us. It's what we do with it or don't do with it. And
Interesting.
the I tell my
So
kids this
being comfortable sitting in fear, but still making a choice or taking action on something.
exactly, and that's where that
Interesting.
again they're tied together, right?
Yeah.
If the fear leads to ambivalence and the ambivalence leads to ignorance, then now you're stuck, right? And now you're in a spot that is you're not moving. I tell my kids all the time when I ask them to do something scary, we tend to put our kids like we do rappelling, we ride a lot of motorcycles, we ride a
A lot
lot
of
of different stuff.
exposure therapy for them, it
Yeah,
sounds.
my kids like
You're
we
afraid of
yeah.
heights? Cool. Climb a mountain.
But there is something to be said. I tell my kids, look, bravery is not the absence of fear. Bravery is acting in the presence of fear. And I tip my hat to every practice owner out there because at some point they bit the bullet and took out a massive A loan to go and buy
Yeah.
that freaking practice. That's
Yeah.
scary as it's so
So
scary.
scary.
And they exercised a level of bravery. They exercised a level of bravery to go into dentistry to begin with. And so we're wired to do these things, but there's always going to be the next thing that we have to exercise our bravery and move past
Yeah,
these
that's good.
fears.
Really good. This is always there.
Always there.
There's
It ain't
always
going
something to be
away.
like, oh crap, I've got to get through this. No, this has been really good, Dan. I've actually really enjoyed this. And I learned something new today that you studied psychology. That's pretty
Yeah,
cool.
yeah.
I no, this is really cool. So, okay, practices that they need mentors. We know this.
Yep, for
What's the
sure.
what's the website they need to go to?
Well, I think we should hit on the last one. Let's talk about
Oh, do I,
capacity first.
geez, I keep skipping them. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I
no,
wrote them in wrong order, and I thought we already did capacity. Okay,
no,
capacity.
yeah, capacity, and I talked earlier on the show what those two things are and how they manifest. One is bandwidth, the other is
Yeah,
the actual ability, right? And
yeah.
I don't need,
Bandwidth, skill set, or ability is what I
yeah.
put down here.
And this is one, I don't need to beat this one too much. I think we all understand capacity, and there's, at the end of the week, we feel when we've met our capacity, right? We're like, okay, I'm done. And I certainly think that every doc has met their limit, at some point in their career when they're taking a tooth out, where, maybe it's
Yeah.
early on in dental school, and you're like, I cannot get this thing out. I have met the limit of my capacity to be able to do this thing. And but I think we've all bumped up to the limit of our capacity, and we have to look at that and take a good stock and inventory clinically, obviously, but clinically where that I think we know docs know their capacity clinically, and they build their practice around that. So they refer out for certain things they don't like or that they don't
Sure.
have a high capacity for. I have a very, very low capacity for ortho. And what I mean
Sure.
by that
Yeah.
is I don't have a high interest for it. I didn't enjoy it in residency. It was not something that I just had a really low capacity. I don't even know if I could do it well. I have no idea because I never had enough capacity or interest to go
To
into
even
it.
get to it. Yeah.
Yeah, and then you look at so there's that type of capacity, and I think that we as dentists are really good at setting the boundaries for our clinical capacities. But
Yeah.
then you look at bandwidth, and bandwidth is a completely different type of capacity. And we typically, when I talk about being the good enough dentist and getting to that comfort zone, when I think of comfort zone, I don't think about it led by ambivalence. I look at it as a capacity, and I want to be in my comfort zone as far as bandwidth. I want to have bandwidth left over at the end of the week.
Yeah. Sure.
So when I'm done doing everything, when I'm done clinic seeing patients 4 days a week between two practices and working another full-time job with Elevation Association, and then working a ton with Dental
The
Legacy
podcast you're
Foundation.
on.
And then, yeah, I want to have when Friday rolls around, I want to have enough bandwidth to be able, I want to have enough capacity to jump on a podcast with Jordon Comstock and go and throw down. And
Just
like,
chill. Yeah.
yeah, and that to me is how I measure, okay, am I maxed out?
Yeah.
Am I done? And you can break it down into any like particular arena within your professional life because we can max out in different areas of bandwidth. We're like maybe management, this is where understanding your role of visionary or integrator is huge.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Big time.
So know your role. I say that all the time. Know your role,
Well, yeah,
and
know your role, and then I mean, every human being in your practice has all these things that we just talked about, right?
yep,
And know that too,
yep,
and how to assess and even help, right? Like one thing I like about how we operate is at Boom Cloud is like, does this person have the capacity and the ability for this role? And what the company is needing right now from this role, right? And we assess our people all the time. Like I think that's just as important as self-assessing. Is like I think it was a few last year. I'm like, I like sales, but I'm not and like a sales rep is kind of like a dentist here at Boom Cloud. They diagnose a problem and then they give the solution. It's very similar, right? They don't think of themselves that way. That's how I think of them, the good ones at least. But I was reflecting last year on myself. I'm like, I can only do so much coaching these types of sales reps. Like I have skill sets elsewhere. So we hired a coach, right, that comes in and coaches these guys because I'm like, can't get I can't teach these guys because I don't know what I don't know about a sales org, right?
yep.
I could teach a marketing team what to do and a software team what to do. Like those are my skill sets, right? So I think uh how I'm learning, on this episode is okay, yes, we need to self-assess, but then we also as leaders because that's what we are running organizations. We need to help our team members assess as well and make sure that we're placing them in places where they have the capacity and ability and they're reducing ignorance because they're reading books and maybe
Right.
getting a coach or mentor. Like that's our job too as leaders, right?
Yes.
To do it ourselves, but then also
Empower your team.
to
Yep.
make sure our team members have those resources as well, because most times they don't. Like when you look at other practices and businesses, right?
Yeah. Totally.
They don't have that type of leadership. So no, I think this has been really awesome, dude. Capacity is, and I don't know if I cut you off. I might have cut you off on some capacity if you if you're finishing some thoughts.
I don't think I've ever finished a thought, Jordan.
You just keep going, right? Yeah.
Yeah. That's my problem is that my
So for
thought.
the remainder of the day, me and Dan are just gonna be talking.
Just kidding. Speaking of
This
capacity,
is gonna be an 8 hour
yeah,
podcast.
it's fun. We're going to test the capacity of the
Yeah.
listeners on this. Like,
Yeah, that's a good test.
yeah,
No.
I would say the only thing I would finish this up with is this concept of alignment and go back to this because capacity ties into this as well.
Yep.
And Jordan, if I were to force you into the sales position, right, and say,
Yep.
okay, not only do you have to train your people on sales,
Yeah.
but you have to lead the sales team and do sales yourself,
Yeah.
right? At what point does your capacity in the other areas diminish?
Yeah. So, well, I know exactly what it was because at one point in time I had to do it running my company, starting Boom Cloud from scratch. I had to be the one to do it, but then I reached a point where I'm like, okay, my capacity is reached here. I cannot go to the next level because I don't know how. And I'm just going to get somebody that knows how.
Ignorance.
And then, yes, I just simply don't know how because I'm not a professionally trained salesperson, right? I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a business owner. I'm a lab guy, right?
Right.
My history is like I'm not a trained salesperson. So if I were to if you were to force me to like do that, one, I would figure it out because I'm driven, right?
Right.
But I would probably let go of my other areas of strengths and then they would struggle, right? And then like have to go back and fix all that, right? That's kind of what I would think would happen if I didn't hire the right people or the right coach for that area, but I don't know. I don't know.
I think you're dead right. I think this is where we start to see the problem with alignment, right? Is
Yeah,
that when you become misaligned so your
I
internal
probably would
wiring,
be unhappy running the company too, right?
yeah,
And
exactly.
not feeling fulfilled.
Well, yeah, exactly. And you just hit on a key point is that idea of fulfillment, right?
Yeah,
When you are low alignment, you're frustrated, you are generally feeling the effects of what would feel like burnout. You are caught up doing things that absolutely drain you. When you are in high alignment, your internal wiring is matched up to your day-to-day job, right? Or the
yeah,
jobs that you have. You are then fed and you are fulfilled. And so that is huge. And the other areas now will shrink, right?
yeah,
You will have the ability because you're overcoming a capacity problem to work on ignorance. You can focus on overcoming fears. You become that in and of itself is a lowering of ambivalence because you're working on these things, right? It is an area that you can start to recognize better now, maybe areas that you've been arrogant in. And so alignment is massive. It underlines this entire
interesting.
concept. And so, yeah, dude, I think that if you want to be living a more fulfilled life, you work a buttload. So start with work, get aligned and become more fulfilled there. And you can overcome those other five barriers.
Yeah, this is awesome. Okay, Dan. So a lot of our audience is like, wow, that was a lot. And
There's a
yes,
lot.
I may
Yeah.
be arrogant or whatever, right? Whatever they're
Yeah.
listening or
We're all, if you think
yeah.
that you're a no on any of those five,
Okay,
then you're
that's
struggling with the first one.
great assessment. Yeah. So if you're wondering, yeah, that's the way to do a quick self-assessment.
Yeah.
I'm not arrogant.
Or you're yeah.
Yeah.
And the irony is if one of those barriers is high in your life, you're probably guilty of all of them. So yeah.
Yeah. No, so if I would say if you're needing to or wanting to improve yourselves and improve your practice, like How do they get in touch with you guys' coaching and mentoring program? Like, what, do you have any resources online?
Yeah, I stumbled onto this thing called the World Wide Web. It's new.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
You
new.
chat GPT'd it?
Yeah, I chat GPT this thing. Yeah, I learned all about it. It's exciting.
Sweet.
It's really exciting. Yeah, I understand it was invented just recently. No, so yeah, go to our website. Go to elevationassociation.com. Also, reach out to us by way of email at Elevation Association. Wait, I just got that back. Elevationassociation.com is our website. Elevationassociation at gmail.com is our email. So yeah, we love talking about this stuff. I obviously am pretty passionate about this. I could
Yeah.
talk about it ad nauseum. I
Yeah.
just
8 hour
did.
podcast. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. But I really do. One of my other core values, Jordan, is to be of use. I want to be
Yeah.
useful. It's massive to me. And so I really do
Valuable.
enjoy talking and learning from other docs, office managers, and professionals within the dental world. And in this conversation alone, I've learned like a ton. And so please, let's keep the conversation rolling. If you see me out and about, pull me aside and let's chat.
Awesome. Okay, man. Well, with that said, we hope everyone has a rocking day.
Yeah, appreciate you, Jordan. Later.